Hello and welcome to another Mr. Carter Science Special. In this video we'll be looking at stem cells, the uses of stem cells to treat various conditions, and the dilemmas of using stem cells in medicine. As always, keep your eyes out on the learning outcomes as we go through so that you can follow along with your syllabus at home. So what is a stem cell? Well, a stem cell is an unspecialized cell. In animals there are two types of stem cells. Embryonic stem cells, which are found in the embryo, and these stem cells can differentiate and form any cell found in the animal's body, and adult stem cells, which are found in the organs and will produce a more limited range of specialized cells. An example of an organ that contains adult stem cells is the bone marrow, and within the bone marrow there are adult stem cells that will differentiate and form a limited range of cells. The blood cells in particular, we have the platelets, red blood cells, and a variety of white blood cells produced by the adult stem cells found in the bone marrow. So stem cells can be used to treat many diseases or repair damaged tissue. For example, transplanting bone marrow stem cells, or we could use stem cells to repair the pancreas. Adult stem cells have been used successfully to treat diseases, and research into the use of embryonic stem cells is at a very early stage, but it is hoped that they can also be used to treat a range of diseases in the future. Embryonic stem cells are harvested from fertility clinics, and the use of these embryonic stem cells is very controversial. So let's look at a number of case studies where stem cells have been used successfully to treat diseases. In the first procedure, healthy bone marrow containing adult stem cells was used to treat a blood disease. The bone marrow was transplanted between a set of twins, and this was the first bone marrow transplant, and it was carried out in the 1950s. The recipient of the bone marrow transplant was then able to use the adult stem cells successfully to replace his damaged bone marrow, and they were able to differentiate and produce all the specialized blood cells he needed to carry on living. In our second case study, stem cells were stimulated to make specialized cells which were then injected into the pancreas. These adult or embryonic stem cells could be used to treat diabetes by replacing damaged cells within the pancreas. In our third case study, embryonic stem cells were injected into patients going blind due to macular degeneration. This study was designed to check the safety of the procedure. However, all the patients noticed an improvement in their sight. So here we have three case studies showing the potential for using stem cells in various procedures to treat diseases. And here are two more case studies. In case study number 4, in 1998, embryonic stem cells were grown into nerve cells which were injected into the legs of paralysed rats. Some movement was restored. In 2010, trials to check the safety of injecting nerve cells developed from embryonic stem cells into the spinal cord of paralysed humans was also carried out. Could embryonic stem cells be used to help people walk again? This research is in its very early stages, and we don't know yet whether this will be a successful or a regular procedure that can be used, but there is certainly a lot of potential. Case study 5. It's hoped that embryonic stem cells could be used to grow whole organs for use in transplant. This could overcome a number of limitations that transplants have, particularly in terms of rejection, because the tissues that are being transplanted into the body, into the recipient, are often so different that the white blood cells will reject them and attack them and destroy the donor organs. Again, two more potential medical treatments arising from stem cell research. So stem cells can be used to treat many diseases or repair damaged tissue. Some treatments may use embryonic stem cells, for example, treating paralysis in rats and potentially humans. So, what are the advantages of using these embryonic stem cells? Well, one of the main advantages is that sourcing embryonic stem cells is painless and certainly less painful than extracting adult stem cells from a living person. Embryonic stem cells can be used, or possibly could be used, to treat a wide range of diseases in the future. For example, paralysis or even Parkinson's disease, which is a disease of the brain and the nerves. Embryonic stem cells are pluripotent, which means they can form almost any of the specialized cells that make up your body. In fact, the only cells that they can't form are the cells to do with pregnancy and surrounding the embryo. For example, the cells that make up the amniotic sac, the umbilical cord, and the cells that make up the placenta. However, there are many disadvantages to utilizing embryonic stem cells. Treating diseases with embryonic stem cells is unreliable and it may not work. The embryo can be harmed or destroyed in the procedure. There's a risk of infection and the transfer of any viruses that may well be found within the stem cell itself. Those viruses will then be transferred to the recipient, to the host of the embryonic stem cells. One of the big advantages of utilizing embryonic stem cells is that they will divide readily and differentiate easily. However, if those embryonic stem cells continue to divide, they may grow out of control and cause cancers. Embryonic stem cells are obtained from fertility clinics, where people and patients undergoing IVF have chosen to donate their unused embryos to the research. Therefore, the embryos cannot give consent. People do not like research using embryos due to many moral, ethical or religious reasons, and may well object to any kind of treatments or any kind of research into embryo work. When we utilize adult stem cells, however, there is a different set of advantages and disadvantages to using them in medical research and medical treatments. Adult stem cells can be used to treat diseases such as bone marrow transplants and help treat leukemia, cancers of the blood. For example, adult stem cells can be injected into the heart to repair damaged tissues. And there are no ethical issues, as patients can give consent or permission for their own adult stem cells to be utilized and used in these medical conditions. The procedures are relatively safe and they do not kill the donor. And the use of adult stem cells is a reliable technique and patients can recover very quickly. However, there are several disadvantages. There's a risk of infection from a procedure. Adult stem cells can only be used to treat a limited number of diseases. The procedure to extract and to implant the adult stem cells can be extremely painful, and there is a risk of infection from a transfer of viruses that may well be in the donor adult stem cells. Unlike embryonic stem cells, adult stem cells may grow out of control and cause cancers. So the use of stem cells clearly raises a number of dilemmas that your course will expect you to be able to discuss and evaluate. So what are the problems of using embryonic stem cells? What ethical considerations must we take into account before as scientists or as students we decide to support the use of these cells in medical treatment? Well, many embryonic stem cells have come from aborted embryos or unused embryos produced during IVF. IVF is in vitro fertilization, fertilization treatments to help couples who struggle to have children. These embryos are often donated rather than allowed to be wasted or discarded. So use of these donated embryos is controversial because some people believe that embryos cannot give permission and therefore they cannot give consent, so using them is a violation of the embryo's human rights. The use of potential human beings as a source of cells to cure others is often considered unethical. Any interference with the process of human reproduction is also often considered unethical or against people's religions, and therefore use of embryonic cells or cells produced during reproduction assistance IVF treatments would be considered unethical. Progress in developing treatments and therapies using embryonic stem cells has also been very slow, very difficult, very expensive and very hard to control. And this is understandable considering the research into embryonic stem cells is less than 20 years old. But this is again another problem with embryonic stem cell research and usage. The signals that control differentiation from unspecialized embryonic stem cells or adult stem cells into specialized cells are not fully understood. So persuading embryonic stem cells to differentiate into the desired specialized cell is also very difficult, and this slows progress. Cancer is another major concern when using embryonic stem cells. The ability to divide and grow rapidly is one feature of the embryonic stem cells that makes them very, very useful. However, there is a concern that embryonic stem cells might cause cancers if they are used to treat people. Why? Because cancerous growths, tumours, is just a ball of cells that rapidly divide uncontrollably. Embryonic stem cells have caused cancers when they've been used to treat mice, and they have also caused cancers in humans during trials into treatments for autoimmune diseases. So this is a major concern if we're going to use embryonic stem cells regularly and in normal procedures to try and treat disease. As we've already mentioned in the video, viruses. There is a risk that adult stem cells and embryonic stem cells may be infected with viruses and so transfer the viruses to an infected patient. These viruses might be viruses like hepatitis, HIV, or any potentially pathogenic virus. Another major issue is rejection. Adult stem cells that are used to treat any other unrelated people may trigger an immune response and be destroyed by the patient's white blood cells. This is known as rejection. So the patient may need to take immunosuppressant drugs for the rest of their lives to prevent the problems of rejection. It's hoped that embryonic stem cells will not be rejected by the patient because the embryos are not rejected by the mother. So there's a large amount of research going into the uses of embryonic stem cells with the hope that transplants of those cells will not suffer the same problems as transplants of adult cells. Any patient taking immunosuppressant drugs will also be at a higher risk of any pathogenic infection because their immune system will be less able to deal with foreign invading pathogenic bacteria, fungi or viruses. Another major issue, of course, is money. Some people and scientists feel that too much money and time is being wasted on stem cell research. They feel the money should be better spent in other more promising areas of medical research. So what's the future of embryonic stem cell research? Well, scientists are trying to grow and culture adult stem cells, so far with only limited success. These cells have only been developed into a limited range of cells, and the adult stem cells have been used to treat some forms of heart disease and to grow new organs such as the trachea here. Adult stem cells, though, have a big advantage that they avoid many of the controversies of embryonic stem cells. So research is often centering on adult stem cells rather than embryonic stem cells. There is research going on into therapeutic cloning. Scientists are trying to use a cell from an adult to produce an embryo. The embryo produced will be a clone of the adult, so it will provide a perfectly matched stem cell which could be transplanted into the adult, and therefore this would solve any problems of rejection. In theory, these cloned stem cells could be used for medical treatments or to grow a new organ for the original adult cell donor. Therapeutic cloning has a lot of potential, but it is proving very, very difficult to carry out. Adult stem cells have been found in the tubes that link the liver and pancreas to the small intestines. These cells have been differentiated and developed into specialized cells that produce insulin. These insulin-producing cells have been inserted to mice with type 1 diabetes, and the mice were then able to control their blood sugar levels, or their blood glucose levels, much better. The next step in this research is to aim for the same success in humans. There's a lot of other potential future uses of both embryonic and adult stem cells. For example, other potential uses include treating spinal cord injuries, paralysis, treating diabetes, treating damaged heart tissue that's been damaged in a heart attack, treating eyesight to cure blindness, and treating damaged bone and cartilage. Stem cells are not just found in animals. Stem cells are also found in plants. In particular, they're found in an area of a plant known as the meristem. And plant meristem cells can be used to make clones of mature parent plants very quickly and economically using techniques such as cuttings and tissue culture. You can see the tissue culture techniques here below. This is very important as it will allow a large number of rare plants to be produced reliably and safely, and therefore some plants can be saved from extinction. Plant cloning also allows a large number of identical plants to be produced, and this is very useful in scientific research, where scientists can change variables and observe the effects on genetically identical individuals. And therefore the effects of these variables are known to be caused by the variable itself and not by any variation in the genetic makeup of the individuals you're studying. Cloning plants from stem cells is also used in horticulture, where plants such as orchids can be grown for sale, and all of those orchids will be genetically identical, so you can have a consistent product. In agriculture, cloning from stem cells is used to produce crop plants with desirable characteristics, for example, disease resistance. One example of this is the banana plant, which are all produced from clones, often grown in tissue culture and or from cuttings. So the use of stem cells is an area of research that is often expanding, and there is a huge amount of potential for the betterment of mankind, both with plants, animals and medical treatments. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please don't forget to like and subscribe and comment in the comment section below so I know what you've learned. Thank you very much for watching.